Have you ever loved someone so deeply that the thought of starting over felt impossible? This is the story of Vivien Hart, a woman rising from the ruins of her past, and Alexander Cain, a man who seemed to have everything, yet was hollow inside. They met in Seattle, one rainy afternoon, when both had lost faith in happiness. And from that moment on, two broken souls learned how to love again, not with reason, but with hearts that had already known pain. If you believe that after every storm comes the sun, stay with me and listen to this journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next episodes in this storytelling series, When the Rain Stops. That day began with a silver-gray light falling over Seattle, a cold, damp shimmer like the dying breath of autumn. It was drizzling, those small, steady, stubborn drops, the kind of Pacific Northwest rain that never truly stops, only shifts between heavy and light, between damp and bone-deep chill. Vivien Hart stood at the entrance of the King County courthouse, hands gripping her purse, staring up at the old grey stone building, the place that would end 12 years of marriage with just a few strokes of a pen. Part of her still couldn't believe she was there. Another part was too exhausted to fight. Inside, the hallway glowed under pale yellow fluorescent lights. The air smelled of cleaning chemicals, old wood, and stale coffee. Footsteps echoed on the stone floor. Pages turned. A copy machine hummed somewhere down the corridor. All those ordinary sounds felt like tiny cuts. Vivien sat on a bench outside the courtroom, divorce papers in her lap, papers she'd read so many times she knew every word. The clock on the wall ticked toward 2:30. 15 more minutes. Just 15 minutes until the marriage she once thought was destiny officially ended. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Where are you?" "The judge is waiting." Short, cold, like everything he'd said for the past year. Vivien took a deep breath and replied, "On my way." When the courtroom door opened, Marcus walked out with his lawyer. He looked as impeccable as ever, charcoal suit, neatly knotted tie, hair perfectly combed. That image, once a source of pride, now tightened her chest. "Vivien," he said her name in a neutral tone, like he was greeting a colleague, not the woman who had shared his bed for 12 years. "We should review the schedule with Isla before we go in." "We already did." Vivien's voice trembled slightly. "Alternating weekends, rotating holidays." "You forgot?" Marcus avoided her gaze, shifting his briefcase to the other hand, an old habit when he was about to say something unpleasant. "I've reconsidered. My work schedule's been hectic. I'm close to making partner. Isla needs stability. Staying with you full-time would be better." The words hit like a hammer to her chest. "You're giving up custody." "I'm not giving up. I'm being realistic," he said evenly. "I'll visit when I can, send money regularly. It's what's best for everyone." "For everyone? Or for you?" Her voice cracked. "She's 6, Marcus. She needs her father, not your money." He adjusted his tie, still avoiding her eyes. "I know you're emotional, but don't make this dramatic. I'm just trying to do what makes sense." She let out a bitter laugh that broke into a sob. "Makes sense? You call abandoning your daughter making sense?" "Vivien." His jaw clenched. "Don't make a scene. Catherine thinks this is for the best too." That name dropped like a stone. Catherine Morrison, 24, blonde, bright smile, his assistant, the woman Marcus had brought into their lives before Vivien realized she'd already lost him. "Catherine thinks this is for the best?" Vivien's voice rose. "And what does she think about my daughter?" "She's not she. She'll be part of my life." Vivien didn't recognize the man in front of her anymore. The way he said "my life," leaving out ours, cut her deeper than any argument ever had. "And what am I, Marcus?" she whispered. "What am I in your life now?" He didn't answer, just said quietly, "It's time." They entered the courtroom, a small room with old wooden walls, the air thick with the scent of paper and ink. The judge, an older man with weary eyes, flipped through the file. "Both parties have agreed on asset division and custody, correct?" Marcus nodded. Vivien forced herself to nod too. "Do you wish to speak before I finalize this dissolution?" Marcus said, "No, Your Honor." The judge turned to Vivien. "Mrs. Hart?" Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Her throat was locked tight. She wanted to say 100 things, to ask why. speak of 12 years of sacrifice, and say she still loved him. But nothing came out except, "No, Your Honor." The gavel struck. The sound thundered in her chest. The marriage of Marcus Andrew Langston and Vivien Marie Hart is hereby dissolved. And that was it. Marcus stood when the sound faded, like a man ending a meeting. He shook hands with his lawyer and gathered his files. Vivien stayed seated, eyes on the table. When she finally looked up, he was already at the door. "For what it's worth," he said politely, "I hope you find happiness." Those words, so kind, so distant, were crueler than any insult. He turned away. The door closed. Vivien sat frozen, hollow. 12 years morning coffees, bedtime stories, promises of forever, all sealed shut with the click of a door. Her lawyer, Robert Chen, touched her shoulder. "Would you like to rest a moment?" "No, I need to go outside." She gathered her things, clutched the decree, and walked out. Every step felt heavy. One thought pulsed in her mind: don't fall apart here. Don't let them see you break. But as she neared the courthouse exit, she saw Marcus standing with Catherine. The young woman was radiant, petite, smiling, glowing. Marcus touched her hand and said something that made her laugh. Then he leaned in and kissed her openly, comfortably. And that sight killed what was left inside Vivien. She couldn't breathe. The air thickened. The paper in her hand trembled. Her vision blurred. Sounds faded. She tried to whisper, "I'm fine," but no voice came out. The papers slipped from her grasp. "I can't." Those were the last words she said before the world collapsed. Her body fell forward heavy, helpless. The cold floor rushed to meet her, but before she hit it, someone caught her. Strong arms pulled her back, and then everything went dark. Alexander Cain didn't remember how he reacted. One moment, he was checking a courthouse directory. The next, he sprinted toward the woman as she fell. Instinct. His body moved before his mind could think. She was pale, eyes unfocused. He slid under her just before her head struck the floor. His knee hit hard, but he didn't let go. She was light, too light. He laid her down gently, checked her breathing quick and shallow. A trickle of blood stained her temple. "Call 911, he shouted, startling him with its force. The guard grabbed his radio. People stopped, whispering. Alex noticed a man in a grey suit and a blonde woman among them. They didn't move closer. For a brief second, the man's eyes met his, then darted away. When the paramedics arrived, they asked quickly, her name, medical history. Alex almost said, "I don't know." But seeing that man still standing there, distant and cold, he said instead, "She's my wife." The medic nodded, unfazed. "You'll ride with us then?" "Yes." In the ambulance, the siren wailed through the rain. Alex sat beside her, holding her hand small, icy. Her mascara had smudged around her eyes. Traces of tears still glistened. A paper lay on the floor of the ambulance, its corner showing the words, "Petition for dissolution of marriage. Divorce. Samyazim." The medic asked, "Any allergies?" "No," Alex lied softly, voice calm though his chest ached. "She's just under a lot of stress. We both are." "Divorce," the medic said kindly. "Rough on everyone. Hang in there, man." "I will," he murmured. They reached Seattle General under heavy rain. Doctors took the stretcher inside, Alex following close behind. In his mind, he kept replaying the morning his ex-wife, Elena, standing with another man at the courthouse. Her words, "I hope you find something that means more to you than money." He thought he'd gone numb, but watching this stranger collapse in tears, he realized his heart still knew how to tremble. He stayed until the doctor returned. "She'll be fine," the doctor said. "Just exhaustion and dehydration. She'll wake soon." Alex nodded, relief softening his shoulders. He didn't know why he cared this much. Maybe because in her closed eyes, he saw himself someone who had just lost everything, falling with no one to catch them. When Vivien woke, it was night. A dim light from the hallway fell across the room. She turned and saw a man sitting by her bed, shirt damp, eyes shadowed. "Who are you?" Her voice was hoarse. "Alexander Cain," he said, standing awkwardly. "I was at the courthouse when you fell." "You caught me?" "Yes." He gave a tired smile. Didn't really think about it. Thank you. She touched the bandage on her temple and winced. What did you tell them? He hesitated. I told them you were my wife. Her eyes widened. She tried to sit up, but he raised a hand. Only so they'd let me stay with you. Nothing else. I couldn't just leave you there. Your husband didn't come. She turned away, tears welling again. He was there, wasn't he? Yes. And you saw her? Yes. She nodded, eyes closing as tears slipped down. I guess they're happy. Alex said nothing, just sat quietly beside her. After a while, she asked softly, You divorced too? This afternoon. She looked at him, surprised. What a coincidence. Maybe fate, he said, voice low. Two strangers falling on the same day. She let out a weak laugh. Falling is right. He looked at her then, that fragile, beautiful smile that held pain and grace. Someone drowning in darkness, still searching for light. He knew that feeling too well. Do you have somewhere to go? He asked after a pause. I guess. A rented apartment. But tonight, she looked down at her trembling hands. I don't want to be alone. He nodded, deciding before he could question it. You can stay at my place for a few days until you feel better. You're not afraid I might be crazy? He smiled faintly. No, I think, when you've lost everything, it helps to have someone nearby. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Just a few days, okay? Just a few days, he promised, though deep down, he already knew this wouldn't end in just a few days. Outside, Seattle rain kept falling. But amid the downpour, in that quiet white hospital room, two broken souls sat side by side, and for the first time in a long while, neither felt utterly alone. And that's where it all began. The Seattle rain hadn't stopped. The next morning, when the city was still wrapped in fog, Alexander Cain pulled up in front of Seattle General with 2 cups of hot coffee. He had barely slept. The image of the woman on the stretcher, rain-soaked hair, pale lips, mascara streaked down her cheeks, kept replaying in his mind, not out of curiosity. But in those closed eyes, he saw himself just hours earlier, drained, hollow, uncertain why he was still breathing. He set the coffee cups on the table and leaned back in the chair beside her bed. Vivien Hart was still asleep, her face softer without the tension of pain. The ceiling light cast a white reflection over her tangled brown hair. In the corner, the wall clock ticked slowly. The room was quiet except for the steady beeping of the heart monitor. Alex took a sip of coffee, grimaced at the bitterness, and set it down with a sigh. He had lied, and so easily for the first time in years. She's my wife. The words had slipped out before he could think. Maybe because he couldn't bear the indifference in the eyes of the man who had let her fall. Maybe because part of him wanted to protect her, if only for a moment. Or maybe, deeper than that, he just wanted to finally do something right, something he hadn't managed in his marriage. A soft sound made him turn. Vivien stirred, her eyes fluttering open, frowning at the light. She looked around, confused for a few seconds before realizing this wasn't her apartment or the courthouse. Then she saw him. You. Her voice was weak and raspy. You're still here? Alex stood, offering a faint smile. I brought coffee. The doctor said you'd wake up this morning. Vivien tried to sit up, but he stepped forward to help. Careful. He adjusted the pillow behind her. She nodded slightly, eyes flickering with gratitude and uncertainty. Thank you for... It's nothing, he interrupted gently. I just did what anyone should. No one would, she said quietly, staring at the white blanket. You don't even know me. Why tell them I was your wife? Alex chuckled softly, his voice low and husky. I've been asking myself that too. Probably instinct. Instinct to protect a stranger? Maybe just instinct to protect myself from feeling useless, he said, then paused, meeting her gaze. Yesterday, I got divorced too. Vivien looked up, startled. You did? Yeah. He nodded, turning the coffee cup in his hands. We were at the same courthouse. I just signed the papers, stepped out, and then you fell. Thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. It was a strange day. She studied him quietly. Under the soft hospital light, his face looked tired, but not weak. His jaw was rough with stubble, dark circles under his eyes, but his voice was steady, warm, calm, which made people feel safe. "Are you okay?" she asked, almost without thinking. Alex froze for a second, then smiled. "That's the question I should be asking you." "I'm not," she said honestly. "But I'm not sure you are either." He laughed softly. "Then I guess we're equally broken." Silence settled again, broken only by the gentle rhythm of rain tapping the window. Vivien inhaled the sharp scent of disinfectant, mingled with the faint aroma of coffee. She took the cup he handed her, her hands trembling slightly. "Do you believe in fate?" she asked. "Not really," he said. "I believe in falls. They make us meet the people we're meant to meet." She looked down at her coffee, smiling faintly. "Then my fall was worth it." Her unexpected words made him pause. That fragile smile did something to his chest, softened it. The doctor checked her briefly and said she'd need a few more rest days. When he left, Vivien hesitated. "I don't know where to go," she admitted. "The old apartment belongs to Marcus. I haven't found a new place yet." Alex thought for a moment. The decision came easily, just like that lie the day before. "I have a penthouse. It's empty. You can stay there for a few days until you feel better." Vivien's eyes widened. "I can't. You don't know me. I don't want to intrude." "You won't." He leaned back in his chair, speaking slowly. "The place is cold. It'd be easier to breathe with someone else around." She was quiet. 1,000 reasons to refuse came to mind, but in the end, she only asked, "Are you sure?" He nodded. "I'm not sure about many things, but I'm sure about this." Vivien turned toward the window, staring at the white blur of rain. Maybe, in the ruins of her world, his offer was like a lifeline, not something to cling to, but something that reminded her she hadn't completely fallen. When Alex stepped out to call the nurse, she watched his reflection in the glass, tall, slightly stooped, like someone used to carrying too much. Inside her, a strange feeling, part gratitude, part curiosity, began to take root. She didn't understand why this man made her feel safe. Maybe because he'd appeared right when she had no one left. That afternoon, Seattle was still raining. Vivien sat in the passenger seat, staring through the fogged-up window. The silver sedan slid through wet streets, headlights reflecting off the pavement like melted stars. Alex drove one-handed, the other lightly adjusting the radio. Soft jazz floated through the car, autumn leaves, old but comforting. "Are you cold?" he asked. "No, I'm fine." She pulled her coat tighter. "Does it always rain like this here?" "Pretty much. The rain is the city's heartbeat." "Heartbeat," she repeated, smiling faintly. "That's beautiful." He glanced at her. She was looking out the window, her eyes shimmering with the light of passing street lamps. There was something about her that made him want to stay silent, not because there was nothing to say, but because he was afraid that speaking might shatter the fragile peace between two strangers. They turned up Queen Anne Hill, winding through rain-drenched trees. His penthouse was atop a glass tower overlooking the city and Elliott Bay. When the elevator doors opened, Vivien stepped into the apartment and froze. Everything was perfect: polished hardwood floors, glass walls, sleek furniture, not a speck of dust. But the perfection made it feel cold. No scent of food, no sound, no sign of life. "This is your home?" she asked softly. "Yeah, more or less." He set his bag on the table. "Elena, my ex-wife, chose everything. She liked things minimal, tidy, and without traces. She left 3 months ago." He smiled faintly. "Today, it's official." Vivien didn't say anything, just nodded. She knew that feeling too well, standing in a house that used to be home, but now was just a place to stay. Alex pointed. "That room's free. It has its own bathroom. If you need anything, ask." Vivien stepped inside, leaving her small bag, just a purse and a few clothes. On the table, she noticed a picture frame lying face down. She didn't touch it, just sighed quietly. When she returned, Alex was by the window, watching the rain. The city below shimmered gold beneath the streetlights. "Aren't you afraid?" she asked softly, standing beside him. "Bringing a stranger home?" He gave a faint smile. "Sure, I am. But if I hadn't, I'd be more afraid of the silence in this place." Vivien followed his gaze toward the glowing skyline. I didn't think someone could be that lonely in a home this beautiful. The more beautiful it is, the emptier it feels, he said. People fill their spaces with objects so they can forget what they need is warmth. She stayed quiet. His words struck the same aching place she'd been trying to hide. That night, she couldn't sleep. The rain drummed against the glass like a slow heartbeat. In the living room, Alex was still awake, the glow from his laptop lighting his tired face. Through the crack of her door, she saw him leaning on his hand, eyes heavy, mouth tight, a man holding himself together. Vivien quietly closed the door. Somewhere deep inside, an unnamed emotion stirred. She didn't know why, but knowing he couldn't sleep somehow made her feel less alone. The next morning, the smell of coffee filled the kitchen. Alex was at the counter, smiling. "It's the only thing I know how to make." She took the cup from him and smiled back. "Better than me, I just pour boiling water over instant." They both laughed. It was the first laughter to echo through that cold penthouse, strange at first, yet quietly warm. Vivien looked out the glass wall, where the sky was still grey, but a pale light was breaking through somewhere behind the clouds. She didn't know how long she'd stay here. She only knew she wasn't afraid of the morning for the first time in months. And Alex, glancing at her across the counter, realized that from that moment on, his house was no longer cold. Monday morning at Seattle General began with cold white light spilling through thin curtains. Distant sirens echoed outside. Nurses' rubber soles clicked along the tiled floor, and the steady beeping of heart monitors pulsed in rhythm, the familiar sounds of a place that held hope and exhaustion. Vivien woke slowly, her head still aching faintly. She stared at the white ceiling for a few seconds, not remembering where she was until everything from the day before came flooding back. The courthouse, the divorce papers, Marcus's kiss with Catherine, the fall, the voice calling her name through the blur, and the face of the man who caught her as her world collapsed. She turned her head and saw him, Alex, asleep in the chair beside her bed, shirt wrinkled, eyes closed. He dozed off, sitting up, head resting against the wall, a cup of cold coffee on the table. Something about the sight softened her chest, that quiet fatigue that didn't demand pity, only understanding, like he had been carrying an entire rain season on his shoulders. Vivien shifted carefully, trying not to wake him, but the soft rustle made him stir. Alex blinked a few times, then smiled faintly. "Good morning. You're still here?" she asked, voice shy. "Yeah. The doctor said they needed to keep you overnight. I figured, no reason to leave. You could have gone home. I'm fine now." "You're fine now, but yesterday you nearly weren't," he said, tilting his head with a half smile, half worry. "If I'd been 2 seconds slower, you'd be sporting a few stitches right now." She chuckled softly. "Then I guess I owe you my life." "No," he said lightly. "Just call it good timing." Silence lingered, filled only by the patter of rain against the window. "Do you have family?" she asked quietly. "I mean, anyone close?" "Not really." His voice slowed. "My parents passed years ago. I've got a sister in Portland, but we rarely talk. My ex-wife," he gave a thin smile. "She's probably off enjoying her emotional honeymoon with someone new." Vivien exhaled softly. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," he said with a shrug. "You didn't do anything wrong." "No, I mean, I'm sorry because I know what that feels like." They both fell silent, and something gentle took root in that silence. A quiet understanding that only forms when two broken souls recognize the same cracks in each other. Alex stood and poured her a glass of water. "You should drink. The doctor said dehydration caused you to faint." Vivien took the glass, her hand trembling slightly. "I never thought I'd actually collapse. I thought I was stronger than that." "Everyone thinks that until the body decides to say what the heart's been holding in," he said. She smiled faintly, eyes glistening. "You're right. Maybe I've been trying to be strong for too long." He was quiet momentarily, then said softly, "You know, I've collapsed too. Just no one saw." She looked up. "When?" "The day I signed the papers," he said. "I went home, and everything looked the same. The wineglass, the couch, the framed photo, but the person in the photo was gone. I just sat there on the floor, doing nothing, just breathing. It felt like I'd lost the map to my own life." Vivien pressed her lips together. That's exactly how it feels. You must have loved him a lot. I did, she said. 12 years. 12 years believing that if I loved enough, he'd stay. But he didn't. No. She gave a weary smile. Sometimes people leave just because they can. They looked at each other and chuckled, the kind of laugh that only comes after too much crying. When sorrow becomes something familiar, Alex reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small notebook. Do you ever write things down? When everything fell apart, writing kept me from losing my mind. Vivien eyed the notebook, hesitated, then nodded. Maybe I should try. He handed her a pen. Doesn't have to be good, just has to be real. She opened to a blank page and wrote her first line. Day 2, after losing everything, I'm still breathing. Alex smiled as he read it. That's a good start. A start to what? To living again. She stayed quiet, feeling his words' weight and tenderness sink into her chest like a promise. By midday, the doctor announced she was clear for discharge. Alex handled the paperwork himself, signing as if he were her husband. Vivien started to protest, but he only said, Let me. I'm good at filling in blanks. When the wheelchair rolled her out of the hospital doors, the rain had finally stopped. Pale sunlight spread across the wet city streets. Vivien took a deep breath, the cold air filling her lungs. I don't even know how to thank you, she said as he opened the car door. Don't thank me. Just promise you won't fall again. She smiled faintly. No promises. But if I do, I hope you're nearby. Alex laughed softly, starting the engine. I'll try. The car pulled away from the hospital, gliding through rain-soaked streets toward the faint lights on the horizon, toward the empty apartment, waiting for them both, and whatever might begin from the wreckage. That night, Seattle was quieter than usual. Vivien lay on the guest bed, staring at the ceiling in the dark. Faint jazz drifted through the air from the other room low, smoky notes like a heartbeat. She turned on her side, trying to sleep, but her thoughts spun between past and present. A gentle creak. The door opened slightly. Soft yellow light spilled from the hallway. Alex stood there, holding 2 cups of tea. I heard you moving, he said. Can't sleep? Not used to strange places. She smiled faintly. Chamomile tea, he said, offering her a cup. Doctor's orders good for restless minds. She wrapped her hands around the warm ceramic. Thank you. You can't sleep either? He sat in the chair across from her. I rarely do. My mind's got a volume knob stuck at 10. I don't know how to turn it down. Vivien tilted her head, amused. What did you do? Before everything, tech, real estate, boring stuff. You? I ran a bakery. Small, but it was my dream. And now? Now it's probably closed. I don't think I can keep it going alone. Alex took a sip of tea, his voice low. I think you can. Maybe better than you think. She looked at him, half skeptical, half touched. You trust people easily. No, he said with a faint grin. I just have a habit of seeing potential where others see failure. Occupational hazard. She laughed softly. Sounds like something a self-help billionaire would say. Maybe, he said. At least I don't sell seminars. Their laughter broke the quiet light, fragile, but real. Vivien laughed, and meant it for the first time in months, a laugh with tears behind it, but still laughter. You know, she said quietly, I'm scared I'll never love again. I used all my tenderness on someone who didn't deserve it. Alex looked down at his cup, then up at her. His eyes were steady, kind. Love doesn't disappear, he said softly. It just changes shape. Right now, it's in how you care for your daughter. How do you wake up every morning, even when your heart's in pieces? And one day, when someone good enough walks in, you'll realize there's still room in you for love. She was silent for a long time, then whispered, What if that someone is you? Alex froze for a moment, eyes shadowed, then softened. Don't think like that yet, he said gently. We're both still broken. 2 people with fractures shouldn't lean on each other too soon. But if you need someone to sit beside you while you heal, I'm here. Tears slipped down her cheeks, warm against her skin. I don't even know if I'm worth staying for anymore, he said quietly. You deserve to stay in your own life, Vivien. That night, they sat like that 2 strangers in a white room, drinking chamomile tea and sharing the weight of their scars. They didn't touch. They made no promises. But sometimes, presence alone is salvation. When the first light of dawn seeped through the glass, Vivien whispered, "I think I can sleep now." Alex nodded, standing. "Good. Let tomorrow come when you're ready." She watched him leave, his shadow long across the floor. The door closed. The room was white again, quiet, but something small had warmed inside her. Not love, not yet. Just hope. And hope is the first step toward healing. Seattle in early December was cold and damp. The rain spread a thin silver sheen over the streets, the glass windows reflecting the dim yellow of streetlights. The whole city felt like a sad song, the rain its rhythm, the wind its words. When Alex's car stopped in front of the glass tower on Queen Anne Hill, Vivien looked up, her eyes filled with curiosity and hesitation. His apartment was on the top floor where all of Seattle's light could pour in each morning, and the rain could drum against the windows all through the night. "This is your home?" she asked softly, her voice small but tinged with wonder. "Yeah," Alex replied, opening the trunk and taking her luggage. "The apartment overlooks Elliott Bay. It's beautiful, but a little cold." "Cold?" He glanced up at the tall panes of glass, reflecting the grey sky. Not the kind of cold that comes from the weather. The kind that comes from missing someone's presence. Vivien fell silent. His words struck something deep inside her. She understood that cold, the kind that lingered after a child's laughter faded, after the Sunday coffee smell was gone, after the house that once held love became just walls and silence. The elevator opened into a quiet hallway lined with white stone. When the penthouse door swung open, Vivien stopped short. Everything was perfect, too perfect. Silver grey and black tones, minimalist furniture, a spotless kitchen, a living room that looked more like a showroom than a home. Every object was elegant, expensive and soulless, as if no one had ever lived there. She stood at the doorway, reluctant to step in. "I'm afraid I'll mess it up," she murmured. Alex smiled faintly, setting her suitcase down. "That's exactly the problem. This place is too clean. I'm hoping you'll make it a little messy." His tone made her laugh, a slight, genuine sound. "I'm not sure messy is my talent, but I'll do my best." He pointed to a door. "The room on the right is yours. Private bathroom. Let me know if you need anything." She nodded and walked in. Inside were white sheets, a glass wall overlooking the bay, and silence so deep she could hear her heartbeat. She set down her bag and stared at the grey horizon, rain streaking the window. Even in this beautiful place, she felt that familiar emptiness, that ache of someone with a roof but not a home. Dinner that evening was simple. 2 store-bought salads and an open bottle of red wine. Alex couldn't cook. Vivien didn't have the heart for it yet. They ate quietly, the rain tapping the windows like soft percussion. "How long have you been living alone?" she asked after a while. 3 months. "Since Elena moved out." "Elena, your ex-wife?" He nodded. "She's a surgeon. Brilliant, strong, driven. We used to think we were the perfect couple, but then I realized we were just 2 people keeping up the image of perfection long after the feeling was gone." Vivien nodded slowly. "I know that feeling. And you?" he asked gently, his gaze steady. She stared down at her glass of wine. "I loved Marcus with everything I had. I thought if I loved him long enough, hard enough, he wouldn't leave. But I guess love can't save someone who's already decided to go." He didn't reply, just poured her another glass. "Do you miss him?" "Yes. But not because I still love him." She paused. "I just miss the feeling of being needed." Alex didn't answer. He didn't need to. He understood, all too well. After dinner, Vivien washed the dishes. From across the room, Alex watched her, the small, gentle figure, hair tied loosely, sleeves rolled up, hands still trembling slightly. There was something tender about how she moved, as if her quiet presence alone was softening the sterile air of his kitchen. When she turned and caught him looking, she flushed. "What?" "Nothing," he said, smiling. "Just thinking, this place already feels less cold." Vivien laughed, turning away. "Probably because the stove's on." He said nothing, but inside he knew it wasn't the stove. It was her. The next morning, Seattle greeted them with a fine, silken rain. Vivien woke early, stepping into the living room in simple pajamas. The apartment was still quiet, but the smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. Alex was already up, sitting by the window with his laptop open, the screen's glow brushing his face. "Morning," he said, looking up when he heard her footsteps. "You're up early." She smiled. "Old habit. I still have a company to run." He handed her a mug. "Wasn't sure if you like it sweet or bitter." "Bitter. Like my mornings." They both laughed. Something easy and unspoken was beginning to form between them, the gentle rhythm that comes when two lonely people start to breathe in sync again. Breakfast was toast and eggs, the only dish Alex knew how to make. The eggs were slightly burnt, and the toast was hard, but Vivien ate happily. "You know," she said, smiling, "I always thought people like you, successful types, never burned their breakfast." "Success doesn't mean I can cook," he replied, amused. "You used to bake, right? Maybe you could teach me." Vivien nodded. "I'll teach you, but you'll have to get used to the smell of flour and sugar." "I like the smell of sugar," he said softly. "It smells like home." She froze a little. "Home," she repeated, testing the word as if unsure it still had meaning. After breakfast, Alex had to leave for a meeting. Before he went, he said, "You can look through the books or walk around. The neighborhood's quiet and safe." She nodded, standing by the door as he disappeared down the hall. The apartment fell silent again, but the silence didn't frighten her this time. She cleaned the dishes, turned on some soft music, and for the first time since the divorce, found herself quietly humming along. That afternoon, when Alex returned, he found her standing on a chair, stretching with a mop to reach the tall glass panels. He hurried forward. "Careful, let me do that." She laughed. "You're scolding your guest already?" "No, I just don't want to take you back to the hospital again," he said, taking the mop from her hands. Her laughter filled the room, and as her scent brushed past him, Alex felt his heartbeat quicken for a fleeting moment, a feeling he thought he'd lost long ago. When the windows were finally clean, they stood side by side, watching the sunset spill gold over the bay. The light filtered through the glass, bathing the room warmly. "I've never seen a Seattle sunset this beautiful," Vivien said softly. "Maybe because today you're not looking at it through tears," he replied. She turned to him, surprised. The fading light flickered in his eyes like fire. For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the distant sound of rain remained, and somehow the space between them felt smaller. That night, Vivien gathered her courage to cook simple pasta with cream sauce. When Alex took a bite, he smiled. "I should have met your inner chef sooner." "Are you complimenting me?" "Maybe," he said, grin widening. "Or maybe I'm just thanking fate for letting me share dinner with you tonight." Vivien shook her head, hiding her smile behind her wineglass. "You're good with words." "No," he said quietly, "just honest." The once cold apartment now echoed with laughter. Nothing extraordinary, just two people eating together, trading small stories. But sometimes, happiness begins with the most minor things. When she said goodnight and closed her door, Alex stayed in the living room, staring at the glowing city below. The rain sounded different tonight, not heavy and lonely against the glass, but almost like a song. For the first time in years, the penthouse finally felt warm. Not from the fireplace, but from the presence of a woman learning how to begin again. Saturday morning brought sunshine to Seattle, rare and fleeting, like an apology after endless days of rain. Light streamed through the expansive glass windows of the penthouse, spreading warmth across the wooden floor. Vivien opened her eyes and felt the first ray of sunlight brush her cheek. She heard the whisper of wind through the curtains, and soft music drifting from the living room, Norah Jones' "Don't Know Why" playing faintly in the background. She stepped out and saw Alex in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, focused on a frying pan. This time, there was no smell of burning, only the soft scent of butter melting in the air. "When did you learn to cook?" she asked, her voice still husky from sleep. "After someone laughed at my burnt eggs the other day," he replied without turning, the corner of his mouth lifting. "Considerable improvement," she teased, watching him flip the eggs neatly. "Good teacher." "Teacher? You," he said, glancing at her with a spark in his eyes. "You taught me not to fear getting things wrong in the kitchen." Vivien smiled softly. "That sounds like a life lesson." "It is," he said lightly. "I realized life's a lot like cooking. Nobody gets it right the first time. having the courage to stand in the mess and try again. She didn't answer right away. He said it so casually, but the words pierced something inside her, that fragile part still carrying the echoes of every time she'd fallen. After breakfast, Vivien got ready to see Isla. She'd promised her daughter they would meet that day. Isla had been staying with Vivien's closest friend, Rachel, who'd helped care for her while Vivien recovered. As she slipped on her shoes, Alex walked over. "Mind if I come along?" She paused. "You sure you don't mind?" "Not at all. I want to meet her," he said, then added, more gently, "if you're comfortable with it." Vivien hesitated, then nodded. "Isla's friendly, but she still doesn't really understand the divorce. I don't know how she'll react seeing us together." "We don't have to explain anything today," he said. "I'll just be a friend." A friend. The way he said it made her heart soften. They drove to a quiet neighborhood in South Seattle. As soon as the car door opened, laughter burst through the air. Isla ran toward her mother, two little braids bouncing, dark eyes sparkling. "Mama." Vivien knelt and caught her in her arms. That tiny warmth, her daughter's heartbeat against her chest, swept away every sleepless night she'd spent missing her. "Hi, my sweet girl. I missed you," Isla said, voice muffled against her shoulder. "I missed you too." When Isla looked up and saw Alex, she tilted her head curiously. "Who's that?" Alex crouched down to her height, smiling. "Hey there, I'm Alex, your mum's friend. Do you like chocolate ice cream?" she asked, dead serious. Alex blinked. Yeah, chocolate's my favorite." "Then you're good. People who like chocolate are good." Vivien laughed. "Since when is that a rule?" "Last night," Isla said solemnly. "The moon told me." Alex nodded with mock seriousness. "Well, I completely trust the moon." And just like that, 3 minutes later, Isla held his hand, leading him to see Rachel's flower garden, chatting like they'd known each other forever. Vivien stood watching, emotion swelling in her chest. There was peace in seeing her daughter smile again, and something profoundly tender in how Alex listened to Isla, his eyes soft and kind enough to tighten Vivien's throat. On the drive home, Isla chattered non-stop about ballet classes, pet fish, and a tiny pink piano she wanted. Alex listened with genuine attention, asking, "What kind of fish? Goldfish or clownfish? And what color should the piano be?" Vivien watched them from the front seat, and something inside her began to melt, slow, quiet, inevitable. When they pulled into the penthouse garage, Isla looked up. "Is this your new home, Mama?" "Just for now," Vivien said. Alex added, "But if you like it, you can visit any time." "Does it have chocolate ice cream?" "An entire freezer full." "Then I like it already." Her answer made them both laugh. That evening, the penthouse was alive with a child's laughter for the first time. Isla ran from room to room, wide-eyed with wonder: the grand piano, the tall bookshelf, the abstract painting hanging in the living room. "Hey, what does this painting show?" she asked. Alex knelt beside her. "It shows feelings." "What do feelings look like?" "Like this," he said, closing his eyes with mock seriousness, then suddenly pulled a silly face that made Isla giggle. Vivien stood nearby, holding a cup of chamomile tea, the steam curling up into the soft glow of the lamps. It was such an ordinary moment, yet it was nothing short of magic for her. After Isla fell asleep late that night, Vivien stepped onto the balcony. She wrapped a cardigan around her shoulders, leaning on the railing. Below, the city glimmered under a fine drizzle. Alex joined her, carrying 2 glasses of wine. "She's asleep?" "Out like a little angel," Vivien smiled. "Thank you for making her laugh today." "It was easy," he said, smiling. "She's wonderful. I think she's more like you than you realize." She turned to him. "You think so?" "Yeah. When she talks, she has that same look you get when you stare out the window, brave, but afraid to be hurt." Vivien's throat tightened. "Marcus used to say I was weak." "He was wrong," Alex said quietly. "Weakness is avoiding pain. You face yours every single day." She gave a small, sad smile. "Maybe. But there were moments I didn't think I'd make it through." He set his glass down and stepped closer. "I know," he said softly. "I saw it in your eyes that day on the courthouse floor, that heaviness that makes breathing feel like work. I've felt it too, Vivien, but you didn't give up. You stood up. And today, you made your daughter laugh." That's strength. Tears shimmered in her eyes. You always say things that make me want to believe. Because they're true. They stood in silence. Rain tapped gently against the railing. Down below, the city lights shimmered like blurred constellations. After a while, Vivien whispered, "Alex, do you ever get scared? Starting over?" "Always," he said. "But I've learned that fear doesn't mean stop. Fear means you're walking towards something that matters." She nodded slowly. "Then maybe that's where I am now." He looked at her, his gaze steady, deep. "You're not lost, Vivien. You're just finding your way home." Her breath caught. There was no rain or city noise at that moment, just two people standing a few steps apart, sharing the same fragile quiet that once broke them both. "I don't know what the future holds," she said softly. "But I know one thing today. I feel lighter." "Sometimes," Alex smiled, "lighter is enough. I've lived long enough to know happiness isn't a storm of feelings. It's the moment you can breathe without hurting." Vivien tilted her head back, watching the misty sky. "Then I guess I'm happy," she whispered. Alex said nothing. He handed her his scarf, a quiet agreement. Later, as she headed to her room, Vivien paused at the doorway and glanced back. Alex was tidying up the wine glasses, the warm lamplight tracing the calm lines of his face. She suddenly understood laughter doesn't always return with noise or fanfare. Sometimes it comes quietly in a child's footsteps, in a kind man's presence, in the steady rhythm of a heart learning to beat again. Vivien smiled. The rain still fell outside, but Seattle had found its sun inside. Seattle had returned to rain, prolonged, patient rain that seemed to teach the city how to breathe slower. It had been nearly 2 months since Vivien moved into the penthouse. Her wounds weren't fully healed, but they had stopped bleeding. She no longer woke each morning with that familiar weight in her chest. Instead, there was a quiet rhythm to her new life. Isla's laughter echoing down the hall, the soft clink of mugs as Alex brewed coffee, and the sweet scent of baked bread drifting from the kitchen. The penthouse was no longer cold. On the table sat fresh tulips that Alex bought every Monday. On the walls hung Isla's colorful scribbles, dolphins, cupcakes, tiny houses with smoke curling from the chimneys. The apartment now bore the marks of the living of care, warmth, and a life slowly returning. That morning, Vivien dropped Isla off at school, then stopped by the construction site. Alex was overseeing a row of old waterfront stores being transformed into a small community market. It wasn't one of his luxury projects, but something closer to his heart, a space for small shops, cafes, and bakeries. He'd promised her a cozy corner shop by the sea. When she exited her car, she saw him standing in the drizzle-coat damp, hair wet, talking to his crew. He turned when she called, and that look in his eyes, warm, steady, familiar, made her forget how cold the morning was for a moment. "Checking on progress?" he teased. "Making sure my oven gets its fair share of space. For humanitarian reasons, I'll ensure your pastries have a proper home." She laughed, brushing the wind from her hair. "You say I'm saving the world with flour and sugar. What's nobler than the smell of fresh bread at 7 a.m., he said, lowering his voice. "Especially when it makes a little girl smile." The words stopped her for a moment. Isla had changed so much since moving in. She no longer cried at night and feared sleeping alone. She loved walks with Alex, loved his silly napkin puppets, and his bedtime stories about the sea. Vivien knew her daughter was happy, and that happiness had everything to do with the man standing before her. When they left the site, Alex asked, "Lunch? There's a soup cafe nearby, best in the city. Are you asking me on a date?" "No," he said, smiling. "Dates come with flowers. This comes with soup." She laughed. "Soup works." The cafe was small, golden light, soft jazz, the smell of toasted bread. They sat by the window, watching raindrops chase each other down the glass. It felt calm, peaceful, and for the first time in years, Vivien thought maybe she had made it past the pain. But peace, she would learn again, never stays long. That afternoon, while sorting through order books, her phone rang. An unfamiliar number. Mrs. Hart. A man's voice, low, cool. "Yes? I'm the attorney for Mr. Marcus Langston. My client wishes to discuss the custody agreement." Vivien froze. "There's nothing to discuss. Everything was signed and finalized. I'm simply relaying the message. Mr. Langston would like to meet in person. No. She was about to hang up when his voice slowed. He said that if you refuse, he'll file for a modification of visitation rights. For one heartbeat, everything she'd rebuilt cracked open again. The silence, the fear, the weight pressing against her chest. The past was knocking, and she wasn't sure she had the strength to open the door. That evening, she told Alex, he was making tea when she walked in, pale and shaken. "Marcus wants to meet me," she said quietly. The cup in his hand paused mid-air. "About Isla?" She nodded. "He said he'll go to court if I don't agree to talk." He stayed quiet for a long moment, then asked, "Do you want me to come with you?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "I have to face him, alone." Alex stepped closer, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Vivien, you don't have to do this alone. He already broke you once." She looked up at him. "Steady now. I know. But I'll never truly stand alone if I can't face him myself." He understood. So he nodded. "Then I'll wait. Right here." There was something unspoken in his smile, quiet confidence, unwavering faith, and in that moment, Vivien knew, even if she trembled, she wouldn't fall. Because this time, she had someone to come back to. They met at a cafe downtown, the same one Marcus had taken her to years ago, where he'd once proposed. The tables were the same, the light was the same, only the people had changed. Marcus arrived 10 minutes late. Same tailored suit, same polished shoes, same practiced charm. But something was different now, a tiredness in his eyes he couldn't hide. "Vivien." He sat down and ordered coffee as if old friends were catching up. She said nothing. He sighed. "You look different. Different is good." He smirked faintly. "I guess so." His gaze lingered. "I didn't think you'd bounce back this fast." "Then you underestimated me." "No," he said. "I just thought you used to be weaker." Vivien sat straighter. "Then you thought wrong." They sat in brittle silence. Finally, Marcus crossed his arms. "I didn't come to argue. I want to be more in Isla's life. I'm her father, I have that right." "You had that right," she said evenly. "You gave it up. I know I made mistakes. I just didn't realize what mattered until I lost it." "Marcus," she said quietly, "this isn't about you. It's about her. Isla needs a father who knows how to love, not one who shows up out of guilt." His tone shifted, sharper. "You're living with him, aren't you?" "Who?" "Alexander Cain. Everyone in Seattle knows who he is." His voice turned bitter. "You and Isla, living in his penthouse. You thought I wouldn't find out? You've been following me? I have the right to know where my daughter is." "No, Marcus." Her voice hardened. "You just can't stand not being in control, same as before. I'm trying to protect Isla from a man you barely know." Vivien laughed softly, a sound with no humor. "You don't see the irony. The man who betrayed his vows is talking about protection." His jaw tightened. "You're replacing me with a stranger." "No. I'm replacing fear with peace." "You think he loves you?" "I don't know," she said calmly. "But at least he doesn't treat love like a contract." Marcus rose, voice rising. "You're letting my daughter live in another man's world." Vivien stood too, eyes cold and clear. "My daughter, Marcus, she belongs where love exists, not where ego does." He stopped. For once, words failed him. Vivien picked up her bag. "If you want to be a father, start by growing up. If not, stop using Isla to comfort your pride." She left the cafe without looking back. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air was cold, but she didn't shiver. Each step she took felt lighter, steadier. When she reached the penthouse, Alex was at the door, as if he'd known the exact moment she'd return. His eyes searched hers, no questions, just concern. "It's okay," she said softly. "You saw him?" "I did." "And?" She smiled faintly. "For the first time, I saw him clearly, not as the man I loved, just as someone lost." Alex nodded, stepping closer. "And you?" "I found my way home." He didn't speak, just pulled her gently into his arms. No grand gestures, no music, just two broken souls breathing the same quiet air. Outside, Seattle glistened after the storm, and inside her, the past finally closed, not with a knock on the door, but with her heart opening again, this time, for something and someone truly worth it. In the days following her meeting with Marcus, Seattle slipped into that strange in-between season when the rain began to thin and pale sunlight filtered through the grey clouds, as if the city itself were relearning how to smile after months of gloom. The penthouse on Queen Anne Hill felt different, too. The air inside was lighter now, warmer, and there was something in Vivien's eyes that told Alex she had finally crossed the threshold of her past. She started buying fresh flowers every morning, tulips, carnations, sometimes sunflowers so bright that their reflection seemed to warm the whole room. Isla was back in school, and each afternoon her laughter echoed through the kitchen as Alex pretended to taste a batch of cookies and declared, "Too salty," to make her giggle. Vivien would stand at the doorway, watching them, her heart soft and still. Sometimes she wondered how peace could look this ordinary after everything she had endured. Maybe peace wasn't something people found, but something they chose to keep after the storm had passed. One evening, after Isla had fallen asleep, Vivien carried a cup of tea onto the balcony. January air bit cold against her cheeks, but the night was clear city lights shimmering over Elliott Bay. Alex was already out there, hands in his pockets, gaze lost in the distance. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. He turned, smiled faintly. "Not much. It is strange to realize I can feel happy without trying too hard." She leaned against the railing beside him. "Happiness comes when we stop chasing it." He glanced sideways. "And you? How do you feel?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Like I'm living again. Not exactly happy yet, but not afraid anymore." He nodded slowly. "Afraid of what? Of being left? Of not being enough? Of loving again?" Alex looked at her, his eyes deep, tinged with sadness. "I'm afraid too. Afraid that if I open up again, I'll lose it all again." "Because of Elena?" He sighed. "We were married 8 years. I thought we'd grow old together. But I realized she never really stayed, not in the way I hoped. Elena loved her work, loved saving lives. I loved her strength. But when we came home, I wanted a wife, and she was still a doctor. I don't blame her. I wish I'd had enough." Vivien's chest ached at the quiet truth in his voice. "Do you ever think some people come into our lives only to teach us how to love, not to stay?" "I do. Elena was one of those people." He smiled faintly. "And you?" She looked out toward the bay. "Marcus taught me that love isn't enough. And you," her voice softened, "you're teaching me that love doesn't have to be perfect." Alex froze. A cool breeze swept past them, lifting a few strands of her hair. He wanted to speak to tell her what was rising in his chest, but instead, he stayed quiet. Between them lay silence, not heavy, but full of words neither dared to say. When she finally went inside, he stayed where he was, watching her disappear behind the glass. He knew then that he was in love with her quietly, steadily, like a light in the dark, warm, unwavering. But he also knew she wasn't ready to hear it yet. So he kept his silence. Because sometimes, love isn't about saying it, it's about staying long enough for the other person to feel it. The next morning, Vivien threw herself into her new bakery. Her shop sat on the corner of the freshly restored market. Alex had built a row of old red brick storefronts facing the sea. The sign above the door read, "Vivien's. Baked with heart." On opening day, the sun showed up for the first time in weeks. The smell of pastries and roasted coffee spilled onto the street. Alex came early to help hang balloons and arrange tables. In her yellow dress and flower basket, Isla skipped around the door, scattering petals like confetti. "Do I look pretty, Mama?" Vivien asked, adjusting her dress with mock seriousness. "The prettiest in the world," Isla chirped. "Agreed," Alex added. "And I promise that's an unbiased opinion." Vivien laughed, shaking her head. "You always know how to make people flustered." "I don't try," he said. "I just tell the truth." When the shop opened, neighbors came by, along with Alex's friends and a few of Vivien's old acquaintances. She was busy but glowing, moving gracefully from table to table, greeting everyone with that quiet, genuine smile. People complimented the pastries, the warmth, the light, and from across the room, Her throat tightened when she caught Alex's gaze, proud, gentle, steady. By closing time, the shop was empty except for the smell of sugar and the golden light fading through the windows. Vivien stood in the middle of the room, taking a deep breath. "I can't believe I did it." "I can," Alex said. "You always believe in me more than I do. That's kind of my thing." She looked up, eyes bright. "Thank you, Alex, for everything." He stepped closer, voice low. "Vivien, there's something I've meant to tell you." Her heartbeat quickened. "But," he smiled softly, "maybe later. Today belongs to you." She didn't ask. But that night, his voice and eyes replayed in her mind like a song that wouldn't stop. It felt as though something big was waiting, something unnamed but inevitable. Later, after Isla was asleep, they sat in the kitchen sharing leftover cake. The room glowed in the soft yellow light, the clock ticking gently. "Do you ever find it hard to believe," she asked quietly, "that two broken people can find peace together?" Alex nodded. "Hard, yes, but not impossible. Maybe you must break first to learn how to hold someone without hurting them. And if one day that person leaves, then I'll know I loved with the best heart I had left." Vivien met his eyes, her voice trembling slightly. "Who are you talking about, Alex?" He smiled faintly. "Life." They held each other's gaze for a long time. No more words were needed. And in that silence, what remained unsaid was clearer and more honest than any confession. After that night, Vivien began to notice the most minor changes. The way his gaze lingered on her a little longer. His hand brushed her shoulder, and she didn't pull away immediately. Every morning's coffee tasted exactly how she liked it, bitter first, then sweet. And she felt that familiar ache again each time she saw him smile, but it wasn't pain this time. It was the quiet realization that she was falling in love. But she wasn't ready to say it out loud, not because she feared rejection, but because she feared that naming the magic might break it. So they lived like that, two hearts slowly finding each other, beneath the rain and light of a city, learning how to heal. And the things left unsaid are sometimes the most beautiful of all. Seattle had slipped gently into summer, soft, clear, forgiving. The sky stretched wide and blue. Elliott Bay shimmered in sunlight, and seagulls glided low over the water, their wings catching silver light. The waves lapped calmly against the rocks, steady as breath. Summer in Seattle was never harsh. It came like a sigh, a tender pause after the city's long grey hibernation. Vivien had never thought she could love this season. Before, summer meant rushing through orders, juggling Isla's school break, cooking, cleaning, a blur of motion and fatigue. But this year was different. For the first time, she had the space to live slowly, to notice how the sunlight pooled across the floor, to listen to her daughter's laughter blending with the soft hum of music from the kitchen. Her bakery had become busier. People came not just for the pastries but for the calm smile of the woman behind the counter. Outside, on the wooden benches under the trees, one man was always sitting with a newspaper, Alex. He ordered the same thing every morning, black coffee and a raspberry scone. Isla called it Uncle Alex's combo. "Do you come for the pastries or for my mum?" Isla would ask, eyes mischievous. Alex only smiled. "Both." Vivien would blush and pretend to scold, while Isla giggled, delighted by a game she didn't yet understand. One sunny afternoon, Alex suggested a picnic by the bay. "We need to escape the smell of flour and coffee for a day," he said. The weather was perfect. They spread a blanket across the grass, a basket of bread, fruit, lemonade, and a waffle Vivien had baked that morning. Isla chased butterflies while Alex and Vivien watched her, sunlight turning her hair to gold. "I never thought Seattle could be this beautiful," Vivien said softly. "It's not the city that changed," Alex replied. "It's the way you're looking at it." "You mean me?" He nodded. "When you stop seeing the world through fear, everything becomes gentler." She fell quiet. His words echoed in her chest, reminding her of the woman she used to be, trembling, uncertain, terrified of everything slipping away. Now, she was sitting on the grass, eating waffles, listening to the wind beside a man who made her believe that happiness didn't have to be complicated. Isla came running over, holding a tiny seashell. "Mama, Uncle Alex said if I throw it in the water, I will get one wish." "And what did you wish for?" Vivien asked. I wish you'd always smile like today." Vivien froze, her throat tightening. She looked at Alex, and their eyes met wordless, warm. He smiled, softer than the sunlight. By late afternoon, Isla had fallen asleep in her mother's lap. Vivien brushed her daughter's hair gently. "Thank you, Alex," she whispered. "For what?" "For giving her a summer to remember." "And you?" he asked quietly. "What about you?" She looked up, puzzled. "Me?" He smiled faintly. "For giving me the feeling of being alive again." She had no reply, only silence, and the steady rhythm of the tide, filling the spaces between their hearts. That night, after Isla was asleep, they sat on the penthouse's balcony, 2 glasses of wine, the scent of the sea drifting in with the wind. Below them, Seattle glowed against the water like a second sky. Vivien leaned back in her chair. "I used to think I'd never love again after the divorce. But now I see. It wasn't that I couldn't love, I just hadn't met someone who made me want to try again." Alex turned toward her, his voice low. "And now?" "Now," she said, looking out at the lights. "I'm scared, but I'm not hiding anymore." He was silent for a moment, then set down his glass. "Vivien, I've tried not to say this for months, but every day, staying quiet gets harder." She turned to him, heart pounding. "I love you." His words came slowly, deliberately, each one steady, certain. The confession fell into the quiet night, like a drop into still water rippling outward, endlessly. Vivien stared at him, eyes wide, glistening. He didn't move closer. He just looked at her, patient, open, waiting. She exhaled shakily. "Alex, he interrupted gently. "You don't have to say anything. I don't need you to. I want you to know that I'm here no matter what happens. Not to rescue you, but to live with you." The first tear slipped down her cheek. She wasn't crying from sadness, but from release from the quiet miracle of being loved without having to prove herself worthy. "You always know how to make me believe," she said softly, "because I believed in you first." She laughed through her tears. "You're stubborn. For you, maybe." Silence. Then she whispered, trembling but sure, "I love you too." Alex blinked, as if afraid he'd misheard. "What did you say?" She smiled. "I love you, Alex, not because you saved me from my past, but because you made me believe I deserve love again." He stepped forward, slowly, as if afraid the moment would vanish. When he was close enough, he brushed her cheek with a touch that felt like breath. "Vivien." "Yes?" He didn't answer. He kissed her. It wasn't hurried or fierce, just 2 broken people finding one another through gentleness. A kiss that felt like a promise. They wouldn't hurt each other this time. When they finally pulled apart, Vivien rested her head on his shoulder. "If this is a dream, I don't want to wake up." "It's not a dream," he murmured. "It's our summer." Outside, the wind swept across the bay, carrying the scent of salt and wildflowers. Seattle sparkled in the night, and in the once cold penthouse above it, 2 hearts, long lost, had finally found their warmth again. Seattle, August. Summer still lingered, but something in the air had changed. After that night on the balcony, the night she whispered, "I love you," Vivien's world seemed to slow, wrapped in a stillness so gentle, it frightened her. Because after all the chaos, this peace felt fragile like mist over the bay, beautiful but easy to break. Still, the days drifted softly. Each morning, Alex sat by the window reading the news, coffee steaming beside him. Vivien baked. Isla laughed. Life moved with the steady heartbeat of someone just beginning to heal. Until that afternoon, Vivien was at the bakery when a stranger walked in, a man in a suit, camera slung around his neck, eyes sharp and practiced. "Miss Hart?" "Yes?" "I'm with the Seattle Chronicle. I'm working on a piece about Alexander Cain, CEO of Cain Innovations. Did you know he's under investigation for the waterfront project?" Vivien froze. "Investigation? He hasn't said anything to me." The man smiled thinly. "Then maybe he's protecting you. The company is accused of manipulating zoning records and illegally buying part of the Old Bay district. If you know anything, photos, details, I can make it worthwhile." Vivien steadied her breath. "I'm sorry. I don't know anything." He nodded, reaching into his coat. "That's a shame. Because these photos are running next week." He slid one across the counter. It was her and Alex, the picnic by the bay, the laughter, the way their hands brushed. Her stomach turned cold. "You understand," he said casually. "Readers love a CEO's love story more than financial reports." Vivien's fingers trembled around the photo. "You have no right. Journalists always have the right, Miss Hart." He left, and she stood there, surrounded by the scent of sugar and vanilla, her heart bitter as burnt coffee. That evening, Alex came home later than usual. His face was drawn, his tie loose, his eyes clouded. Vivien poured him tea and set it down gently. "Rough day?" He hesitated. "Some trouble with the waterfront project. The press just ran a piece accusations of bribery and land fraud. Completely false. But, he smiled without humor. "But I'm a Cain. People always need someone to blame." Vivien sat across from him. "You don't have to tell me everything. But a reporter came to the bakery today." Alex looked up sharply. "What did he say?" "He had photos. Of us." His jaw tightened. "I'm sorry, Vivien. I never wanted them to drag you into this." "You don't have to apologize," she whispered. "I just worry about you." He reached over, taking her hand. "Don't. I've weathered storms before. Just trust me, always." He smiled, but she saw something else in his eyes, a weariness he didn't want her to see. That night, Alex stood alone on the balcony, cigarette glowing in the dark. Vivien watched him through the glass, his shoulders silhouetted against the city lights, a loneliness clinging to him like fog. She walked out and draped her cardigan around his shoulders. "You're cold." He startled slightly, then smiled. "Just restless. Want me to stay?" "Please." They stood side by side, silent except for the wind and the faint rush of waves below. "You know," Alex said softly, "when I was a kid, I thought the sea never changed, that it was the one thing untouched by storms. But even the sea shifts with the wind." She looked up at him. "And you think you're the sea?" He shook his head. "No. I'm the boat. And sometimes I'm terrified of losing the shore." Vivien took his hand. "You're not adrift, Alex." He turned toward her, voice barely above a whisper. "That's because you're the shore, Vivien." Her chest tightened, because she knew people only said things like that when they were already in the middle of a storm. The storm came quickly. A week later, the Seattle Chronicle published the headline, "CEO Alexander Cain and the waterfront scandal inside the penthouse love story with an ordinary woman." Photos spilled across the page. Vivien is outside her bakery. Alex opens the car door for her. Her laughter caught mid-smile. The internet tore them apart. She's after his money, another gold digger in high heels. He's using romance to distract from the scandal. Vivien's hands shook so badly that the teacup slipped and shattered. Isla ran in at the sound. "Mama, are you hurt?" Vivien gathered her daughter close. "No, sweetheart. I'm okay." But she wasn't. When Alex heard, he rushed to the bakery, only to find the doors locked and cameras hovering outside. He found her later by the docks, wind whipping through her hair, eyes swollen from crying. "Vivien, you don't have to say anything," she interrupted, voice breaking. "I know you did nothing wrong, but I'm scared, Alex. Isla's just a child. I can't let her get dragged into this. I'll fix it. You can't control everything, and I don't want to be what hurts you. You're not a burden, but the world sees me as one, and that hurts you." He stepped closer. "What do you want me to do? Let you go?" Her tears fell. "I just want you to be safe. Safe means nothing without you." His words struck deep, but she knew. If she stayed, the press would destroy him. The next morning, Vivien packed her things. She left a note on the counter. "Alex, please don't come looking for me. I need time. Please don't lose yourself because of me." When he returned home, the penthouse was still every object in its place, except for the absence of her warmth. He stood there for a long time, the note trembling. That night, Seattle broke open under a heavy rain, the first in weeks. Alex sat by the window, watching the storm swallow the skyline. He thought of her laugh, of Isla's tiny voice, of raspberry scones and sunlight, and felt his heart twist painfully in his chest. He understood why she'd gone, not because she stopped loving him, but because she loved him enough to step away. And somehow, that hurt even more. 3 days later, the news broke. Cain Innovations was temporarily suspended, investors withdrawing. Reporters swarmed his office, shouting questions. Alex said only one thing: "There are things I will not trade, not even to save the company." "What things, Mr. Cain?" someone asked. He met the camera's eye. A woman named Vivien Hart. The city fell silent. Across town, in a small rented apartment, Vivien watched the broadcast. Her eyes filled instantly. Isla climbed onto her lap, pointing at the screen. "Mama, look, it's Uncle Alex." Vivien nodded, forcing a smile. "He's strong, isn't he?" "Mama's strong too," Isla said, frowning. "Then why are you crying?" "Because I miss him." "Then let's go home," the little girl said, her voice clear as a bell. Vivien pulled her close, holding on as if the world might wash away. Outside, rain lashed the windows, fierce and relentless, but the storm was beginning to calm inside her, because she knew, without question, that no matter the distance, they were still standing on the same side of love. Seattle, late September. After weeks of endless drizzle, the city finally woke to sunlight. Elliott Bay shimmered like glass, and inside the small corner bakery, Vivien's, the scent of waffles filled the air, warm, sweet, familiar. Vivien rose early. She mixed the dough by hand, the soft sound of the radio humming an old tune in the background. In the next room, Isla still slept, her hair tousled, her face peaceful in a way that made Vivien smile. Everything felt calm now, almost whole, except for the slight, quiet ache that still lingered inside her chest. Alex hadn't called since the day they said goodbye. But every morning, a small bouquet was waiting by the door, white daisies, her favorite. No note, no name, but she knew. The storm in the headlines had passed, too. An official investigation cleared Alex of all charges. It turned out that a group of shareholders had falsified documents to blame him. The newspapers issued retractions. They called him the honest man in a dishonest world. Vivien read the story with trembling hands, proud, relieved, but aching, because his victory wasn't one she could share beside him. That afternoon, Isla was doing her homework when the door opened. Vivien looked up and didn't need to see clearly to know. Alex stood there. Rain was on his shoulders, his white shirt was damp, and dark circles were beneath his eyes, but the same gentle smile she had missed every day since. "I know this is where you say, 'I'm busy,'" he said softly, "but I need 5 minutes." Vivien set down the tray. "You don't need to ask." He stepped closer to the counter. "I told myself I'd wait. But every day, without seeing you, felt like breathing meant nothing." "Don't say that," she whispered. "I know." He smiled faintly. "But I've already lost you once because I stayed quiet. I won't make that mistake again." Vivien met his gaze. "Why are you here, Alex?" "To say I don't need the world to understand me. I need you to please believe me. You still do." Outside, sunlight broke through rain clouds, painting the wet bricks in streaks of gold. "You left to protect me," he said quietly. "But Vivien, I don't need protection. I need to live. And living means loving you." His voice cracked, the words raw, stripped of pride. From the corner, Isla lifted her head briefly, then returned to her notebook as if she knew some moments belonged to grown-ups alone. Vivien walked from behind the counter and stopped in front of him. "You're not angry that I left?" "Of course I am." He gave a small, tired laugh. "Angry that you thought I was too weak to stand beside you. Angry that you didn't see we're stronger together." Her voice trembled. "And I'm angry at myself, for being afraid of happiness." "Then stop being angry," he said softly, eyes shining. "Because I plan on being happy with you for a long time." She laughed through her tears. "You're terrible at being serious." "I'm being serious now." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside was a simple silver ring, no diamonds, no glitter, just a quiet promise. "I can't promise there won't be storms again," he said, "but I can promise that when the rain comes, I'll be your shelter." Vivien covered her mouth, tears spilling freely. "Are you sure?" "I've never been surer." And when she nodded, neither spoke another word. Alex slid the ring onto her finger, then drew her close. Between the smell of flour and coffee and rain, She felt the world settle into place again. Seattle was still misty outside, but the sky had finally cleared inside her. That afternoon, Isla ran around the shop, ice cream in hand, singing, "Here Comes the Sunday." Alex sat near the window, watching them laugh, quietly snapping a picture. A year later, that photo hung on the bakery wall framed in raw wood, with a handwritten caption beneath it. The rain ended. The day we learned to trust the Sunday. Vivien's bakery became a small haven in the city. People came not just for pastries, but for the warmth in the air. Alex helped on slow mornings, sleeves rolled up, covered in flour, earning laughter from customers when he clumsily spilled the sugar. Isla grew taller, brighter, learning to write and dance, sometimes operating the register, sometimes sketching waves by the window, and life finally crept, peacefully. Vivien and Alex sat on the balcony one autumn night, watching light rain drift through the air. She rested her head on his shoulder. "Do you remember the first day we met?" He smiled. "Of course. You fainted outside the courthouse. I lied and said I was your husband." She laughed softly. "The best lie I've ever heard. The only one that made me believe in fate." She looked at him, fingers lacing through his. "If you hadn't run toward me that day, I don't think I'd have had the strength to keep living." He turned to her, voice tender. "And if you hadn't fallen, I'd never have learned what love really means." They sat in silence, the sound of raindrops gentle against the railing. "Do you ever think," she whispered, "that every painful thing we went through was just a detour leading us here?" "I do," he said. "And if I had to walk it all again, I'd still choose the road that ends with you." She smiled, tears glistening in the dim light. "Me too." Below them, the city glowed window by window, heartbeat by heartbeat. A ship's horn echoed faintly from the bay, fading into the rhythm of the rain. Alex kissed her forehead, the rain stopping. "Yeah," she murmured. "But this time, I'm not afraid of it anymore." He pulled her closer. "Because you have me." She smiled. "Because even if I didn't, I can stand alone now." His voice caught. "That's what I love most about you." They sat there, quiet, wrapped in warmth and the scent of rain. Above them, the clouds began to part, the city lights reflecting off the clearing sky, and from that high balcony, Seattle looked like its own little universe, where two once-broken souls had found their way home. After everything, Vivien finally understood. Love isn't about finding someone who makes you perfect. It's finding the one who lets you be real. And Alex knew, saving someone from falling doesn't take strength, just a heart that is soft enough to hold them. When Isla padded sleepily onto the balcony and said, "Mama," the rain stopped. Vivien smiled, taking her daughter's hand, and Alex's too. "Yes, sweetheart," she whispered. "The rain's over." Outside, the moonlight stretched across the still bay, reflecting three silhouettes in the window. A man who once broke, a woman who once fell, and a child, the beginning of everything new. Their story didn't end with diamonds or grand vows, but with a quiet evening, a city drying after the storm, two hearts unafraid at last, and a love no longer a miracle, but a choice made every single day. Thank you for walking with Vivien and Alex through 10 chapters of tears, laughter, and standing back up again. You may be somewhere in the middle of your own rain. If so, I hope this story gave you a little warmth, a small light to remind you that every storm passes. If you loved this series, share your thoughts below and subscribe. More stories are waiting, of love, hope, and healing, somewhere under another quiet American sky.